team scores, and the Dodgers win a thriller 1-0. And Martin just did hold up. Sanchez comes in and makes 33 pitches, and the Dodgers now are 8-0 at home. Boy, it was close. Everything was close tonight.
As someone once said, in baseball, some days you win, some days you lose, some days it rains. But something's more specific happened than that on a day in baseball. And today, we'll be talking about a day, one specific day in particular through the years. This is Crafting the Call. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler.
And I'm Josh Suchon. And one of the fun things about this show that Jesse and I have created is that we're looking back on some legendary moments from the World Series. We're looking at no-hitters and these unique calls. But sometimes you come to the ballpark and nothing really happens. Or sometimes you come to the ballpark and you think something historic might happen. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And then other times you come to the ballpark and you have no idea what to expect. And then something happens that will always stay with you the rest of your life. And today, Jesse, we're going to look at a wide variety of things that have happened on May 1st in baseball history.
What I like about us doing this is, for me, as I prepare for my broadcast, I go, okay, I'm going to be calling the balls and strikes. I'm going to be calling the plays. But when I first got my number one job and I started calling a game, I realized you needed to prepare other things to talk about on the air, especially when the game isn't carrying itself. So you talk about what's going on in the league, in the major leagues, in the farm system, the upcoming schedule. And then I started to do Today in Baseball History. And I would talk about what happened on this date throughout the years. And that would help tell some great stories. So the day that we're choosing, as we're going to go through the years, it's going to be May Day. Let's go. May the 1st be with you. What's our first stop?
Yeah, all right. So we're going to go through things in kind of chronological order. And we're going to start with something where it's a day where you go to the ballpark and you have a feeling that something special might happen because something has been building day by day, year by year for about a decade.
The A's having come from behind a 1-0 deficit. Ricky goes, a pitch taken, he's going to have it. He does! Ricky Henderson, no contest, steals third base, jerks the bag from its moorings, and holds it aloft, representing number 939. Ricky pounds it with his left fist, hands it to equipment manager Frank Sinchek, who gives him a big hug. There's Ricky's mom.
Again, talking about the game being forgotten.
And Lou Brock probably the happiest guy on the field right now. He can finally make his speech, pass over the record to Ricky, and go about his business.
Well, he's already out there. They've got a presentation table out there.
So that is the day that Ricky Henderson became the all-time stolen base leader. Bill King, my broadcasting idol, was the broadcaster on the call. Then you heard Lon Simmons, and then you heard Ray Fosse as well. And I remember that day very vividly, Jesse, because I went to school that day. It was a day game. I wanted to skip school. I did not. I was hoping he would not break the record that day, that he would do it another day when I could be in attendance. And I think what is most remembered about that day, number one, is not that Ricky broke the record and anything about it, because it was a very easy stolen base. It was what he said afterwards when he declared that he was the greatest, which, to be fair, is 100% true.
It's the Bill James line, right? You can cut Ricky in half and you'd still have 2 Hall of Famers. He's holding that base above his head. I love Bill King describing Ricky jerking the base from its moorings, and Lon remarking on how this is different than the baseball game, right? This is separate. It's connected. It's a stolen base within the confines of a game, but nobody else had stolen more bases than Ricky. And then Ray adding in the weight, right? The anticipation. And now the weight is off. Lou Brock can say, all right, now you've broken my record. Now let us celebrate this moment in the midst of this game with a ceremony.
Yeah, I think that for the players who have their record broken, and we've seen this with Henry Aaron, we saw this with Roger Maris's sons that were following around Mark McGwire. I think it becomes a very symbolic thing in baseball when you pass the torch, when you're there. But at the same time, Lou Brock doesn't want to keep going to game after game after game. He's got a life, and he wants to be able to get back to that life, but still be there in person to welcome Ricky and say, okay, you are now the record holder. And I just think it's one of those days where, again, it was a midweek day game. The Coliseum is packed that day. A good reminder to all the kids out there. The Oakland A's used to be in the top 5 of attendance when they had ownership that cared and that did a lot of things to have some of the best players in baseball on their team. That's another story for another edition. And just a really fun day that really just symbolized this was Ricky Henderson, right? He did it at home. His mom was there. And, the great Bill King was on the call for it.
It's a steal of third, right? It's a stolen base of third, but nobody had ever done it so much. And that's what we're getting into on this, right? Is it's calling on May 1st a stolen base, but the lead up to it and the whole understanding of when this happens, it is going to be the record and what that must be like for a broadcaster as you're preparing for a record to be broken that you feel is inevitable, but when is it going to happen?
And even with that last call, you can tell that Bill King was still trying to get the words out of whatever thought was going on. And so he's not perfectly set up for it, which knowing Bill, he's probably kicking himself for. You also have to kind of understand where you can't every single pitch be ready, even though you want to be ready. I'm going through this right now. We have a player on our team named Sam Hilliard. And at the time that Jesse and I are recording this, Sam is 1 home run away from tying, 2 home runs away from breaking the Isotopes career home run record. And let's be honest, you don't want to be breaking career minor league records. You want to be maybe breaking a single season minor league records. You want the records to happen in the major leagues. And as I think about every game, I'm making sure to write down Sam's name properly, make sure that the numbers are right, and make sure I have all the different details right so that I'm not stumbling over my words. And a lot of times, Jesse, when Sam comes to the plate, I want to remind people who are listening, okay, he's still 1 away from tying. He's still 2 away from breaking. And I'm hoping that I can time it so that I mention those words and then here's the pitch and there it goes and I can get into this great call. But it doesn't always happen that way. And sometimes you can't keep saying it over and over and over again. And that's where we try to find the right paradox, Jesse, in terms of reminding the audience what's at stake, what could happen any pitch, but at the same time, understanding that it's going to happen when it's going to happen, right?
Sam knocks in 2 runs with a lousy double off the wall.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So
right. What's our next clip?
Yeah, so that was May 1st of 1991. And if you were a producer for ESPN Sports Center, this is the lead story, right? Ricky Henderson has broken the all-time stolen base record. If you are a sports editor, if you are back in the days when newspapers printed and they were not online yet, and okay, we've got to have this great design and this layout for the front page. And so everybody knows the top story is Ricky Henderson. But then something else happens later that same night of May 1st, 1991.
That's it! Number 7 is in the books. The remarkable Ryan has done it again.
So that was Mark Holtz, who was on the call for Rangers radio in a packed house at Old Arlington Stadium, Jesse.
Can I just say that I don't know how much you know about the late Mark Holtz. There was an article that was written about Eric Nadel, and it had a ton about Holtz and his influence and impact on Eric. And Mark Holtz had these critique sheets. This is separate from the point. And so in this article, here's a critique sheet that Mark Holtz did about a very young Brian Anderson. And I took that and I've created it. And I loved Mark Holtz's broadcasting philosophies. Okay, that's neither here nor there. I think he's a tremendous unsung baseball broadcaster who deserves more spotlight. All right. I can understand why this would seize the headlines.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the number of things that happen on this one day, May 1st. You have Ricky Henderson passing Lou Brock. You have Nolan Ryan striking out Roberto Alomar for his 7th no-hitter. That is 4 Hall of Famers that were involved on what is otherwise just another day on the baseball calendar, 1 out of 162. A's fans showed up hoping that they would see Ricky Henderson break the record. Rangers fans showed up because, well, anytime Nolan Ryan pitched, you just never knew what might happen.
It was the Ryan Express. I mean, what was it? 18 2-hitters, 12 1-hitters, and here's his 7th no-hitter. There's always a chance when he takes the mound, there's always a chance that he's going to no-hit the opponent. And there he goes. I mean, what a magnificent career. And so you've got that anticipation. There's no record per se that you're attending the game to watch him break, but you are going to a Nolan Ryan start understanding that you could witness history.
I feel really fortunate I did witness history. I witnessed his 6th no-hitter. That was the one in Oakland. That was the year before. And I remember going to that game with my dad, and we looked at the starting lineup, and he said, there's no Jose Canseco in the lineup. There's no Mark McGwire in the lineup. There's no Terry Steinbach in the lineup. There's no Dave Parker in the lineup. And I went, uh-oh, Dad, we are not looking good today for the Oakland A's. And I remember early in that game, he had racked up so many strikeouts that my dad and I started to think, maybe he's going to strike out 20 or 22 or 23 in this game. And then, Jesse, there became this really interesting point for the A's fans like me and my dad and everybody who was around us at the Coliseum. Because at a certain point, we realized the A's are probably not going to win this game today. So after 6 innings, after 7 innings, after 8 innings, different people in the crowd started to make up their mind. Do we want the A's to win today, or do we want to see history? And I know that once we got to the 9th inning, I was very much, I want to see history. I have never seen any other no-hitters other than Nolan Ryan's. I have never had the privilege to call a no-hitter, so I feel extremely fortunate that I was on hand for one of Nolan Ryan's no-hitters.
There's this feeling that folks who go to a baseball game, and specifically minor league baseball, but baseball games, how many of those people are really invested in every pitch, and how many are just enjoying the experience? And I would argue that that percentage changes when that 0 hits on the hits column stays 0 on the scoreboard for inning after inning. And when that first hit does occur in the 6th or the 7th or the 8th, the roar that erupts from the crowd, whatever the reaction might be from the crowd, lets you know that everybody was emotionally invested. I agree with you. I think that I would turn against my team because of baseball history having a potential of occurring right there in front of me.
What has been your history with either witnessing or describing no-hitters?
As a fan, I've seen a no-hitter get broken up in the 9th inning. It was Anibal Sanchez, and Joe Mauer broke it up. And it was so cool to watch it and feel the tension rise. And in a situation like that, you're going, this is a very great day for Sanchez. Could be a special day, but this is going to be tough. He's got to go through these hitters, and I don't know if he can do that. On the other hand, as a broadcaster, I've now called 5 of them. And there was a no-hitter thrown by a 19-year-old for the Clinton Lumber Kings named Victor Sanchez, who later died in a terrible accident back home, swimming in the water, and a boat hit him. And you just understood he could pitch 13, 14, 15 innings. Nobody was going to get a base hit off this teenager. So the differences in the no-hitters, I've seen combined no-hitters with bullpens where you go, okay, a new fresh guy in the game. Let's see if we can get this guy or the other, the Nolan Ryan style, where you go, boy, this hitter's got no chance. We are locked in here for history.
I think that's one of the things that I just truly love about baseball is that it really is just every day, or at least it's 6 days a week now in minor league baseball. And you just never know what's going to happen. And it might be that it's something that has to do with history. It might be something that has to do with who wins or loses the game. And sometimes it's just kind of like a footnote, but it's just this memorable moment. And that's going to lead to our next one where I swear I'm not picking all of these Bay Area highlights because I'm from the Bay Area. I'm just happy to pick a lot of really interesting things that have all happened on May 1st from over the years.
Yeah, let's go.
And he hits one high. He hits one deep. McCovey Cove out of here.
up with a splash hit sign now.
And they are. There it is.
He's opened up a bottle of champagne to celebrate.
And Bonds comes out. Takes a bow.
Off the bat of Barry Bonds, he puts up the first splash home run that counts in Pacific Bell history.
Okay, once again, let's not forget, this is May 1st that we're talking about. We are a month into the season. There has still had not been a home run that had been hit into the water. There had been home runs that were hit. This is the Giants' brand new ballpark after all those cold, miserable, windy, just horrendous nights at Candlestick Park. And there was a whole bunch of home runs in the first game, which was a day game. Kevin Elster famously hit 3 home runs. And the feeling was this place is going to be a bandbox. And down the right field line, because of the shape of the area that they had to build the ballpark, Jesse, it was only 309 feet, which is much lower than what the threshold is. But Major League Baseball approved it being shorter than the threshold because they built this enormous wall, and it was 24 feet high. And that 24 was significant because that was Willie Mays' number. So it was a 24-foot high fence that you had to clear. And then there's that little walkway, and then there's the water into San Francisco Bay. And it was fitting. It was the ballpark that was built for Barry Bonds. And of course, Barry Bonds would hit the first splash hit at the new ballpark.
The Kuiper home run call, right? He hits it high, hits it deep, out of here. I think it's perfect for a splash hit because you can feel it soaring. And it's the sort of call that it allows the ball to soar with this soaring call all the way into the water.
The director made a couple of decisions. One was to put a camera operator at the top of the right field stands, which is a location that you normally do not put a camera operator. But it was done so because of that specific shot, to get the ball going from home, over the wall, over the fans, and into the water. It's an angle that had never been used before. And also when they were building the ballpark, they consulted with the Giants television team, and where the big light towers were stationed, Jesse, they specifically put them in areas so that the lights would not be in the way of those types of home runs. So that when Barry or anyone else hits it, all it is this white ball against the black background. And it just becomes such just from a cinematography standpoint, it just becomes such a beautiful shot. And then we see the two boats that are crashing into each other, Jesse. And when the ballpark first opened, anybody could be out there. So you had people in kayaks, you had people in these boats with motors. And it was because of that collision, because of that first home run, that the Coast Guard or whoever was in charge of that area said, no more boats out there. You cannot do that. Somebody's going to get hurt out there.
That's beautiful context that you've added. And I think it's interesting to think about the camera shot and the lighting. That's preparation. That's saying when this happens, what puts us in the best point to capture it, to make sure that we get the best look, that it looks good, everything like that. And then there are the things that you can't know until it actually happens. And then you go, okay, we need to immediately set down boat regulations, and we need to set them down now. The things that you prepare for and the things that you have to immediately react to. I think that's very important perspective to give. Back to the camera shot. So I would sit in the nosebleeds at Camden Yards as a kid, and way up yonder, right down the first baseline, a ways down. And I would have a great angle to watch Utah Street shots with a left-handed hitter. I remember Justin Morneau hitting one, and you'd watch it soar the entire way out over right and onto Utah Street. So I would get that view as a nosebleed fan. And we've got that nosebleed point of view of this baseball soaring. It's gorgeous. It makes me think of a golf ball where you watch its entire flight all the way to the landing.
Yeah, which of course made super fun for the home run derbies that were in both Baltimore and San Francisco, is exactly where the ball's going to land and how many different people can be a part of the festivities, even if they're not inside the ballpark. I was actually at Pacific Bell Park, as it was known at the time. That's when I was a newspaper reporter. I was the Giants beat writer for the Oakland Tribune, and I remember filing my story about that night. And it's one of those nights where there's not a whole lot of things I remember about the year 2000, Jesse, right? When I think about the 162 games from that year, but I remember opening day because it was in Miami and it was my first year as a beat writer. And I remember the first game at the new Pacific Bell Park. It was a day game. And like I said, Kevin Elster hit 3 home runs. And then there's a few other times. I mostly remember the clincher. I remember some of the playoff games, especially the JT Snow home run off Armando Benitez that tied it, and the Mets still won it. But I definitely remember that game. I remember the first splash hit, and that's something that I'm always going to have with me, where just another day on the calendar, but May 1st, a significant day that will always make me smile.
Yeah, I really like that you chose May 1st, because if I was going through a baseball calendar, I would say opening day, and you were charged up and you're ready to go. And when's the next significant date for baseball? Is it Memorial Day weekend? How far do you have to travel to find another date that gets everybody's energy back up again? And here we've got May 1st. We're now a month into the season. And look at these electric crowds. And look at this history that's being made.
Yeah. All right. So let's continue to go on with some history too, because sometimes it's something historic and sometimes it's just one guy having a really good day that he's never going to forget.
Right back through the middle.
You said very aggressive, but also very good. In 2001, Catalanotto hit .330, which was good for 5th best in the American League.
Softly hit, but a base hit.
And he threw the fastball right in the hands of Catalanotto.
Gets a base hit. He's 3 for 3. Aaron can throw. Here's the throw to the plate. Not in time. And it is 4-2. Down ball base hit. Goodwood scores. And it's a 7-5 game. Catalanotto 4 for 4. Into center field. Gets by Aaron. So Catalanotto now 5 for 5. 2 RBIs and a run scored.
Now, the ERA and the threes are great.
That is the 6th hit in this ball game by Frank Catalanotto. He is 6 for 6.
There was a 6-hit game all of last year. That by Nomar Garciaparra. Frank Catalanotto, hats off to you. That is doing some hitting.
That is doing some hitting, Jesse.
Hats off to the Cat. Cats have 9 lives. Cats have 6 base hits. Hawk Harrelson, man. Nobody can call a game like Hawk.
It's very understated calls by Hawk. It should be reminded that Hawk's broadcasting for the White Sox, and that was the opponent. And I think that I wanted to use that clip for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I don't know who won that game. I don't feel like looking up who won that game. I just know that Frank Catalanotto went 6 for 6 one day, and that's a day that he should never, ever forget. And also because the day before Jesse and I recorded this, we had a game where it was, I think, 21-7, 21-8. I don't know. I lost track of how many runs there were. I just know the Isotopes lost by a lot. But we had a guy named Hunter Stovall, and it was his first game of the season, and he went 5 for 5. And he had 5 singles and 5 at-bats. And I remember thinking to myself as he came up, then he was 3 for 3. And then later when he came to the plate, when he's 4 for 4, regardless of what the score is in today's game, regardless of what the final score is, and this is not a good day for the Isotopes. This is a day that Hunter Stovall is never going to forget, right? When the season began, he did not have a team. He was back at extended spring. He had to wait, even though he'd been at AAA all of last year. So he's been at extended spring, and he's waiting and he's waiting, and he finally gets added to the roster. And he doesn't play the first 2 days that he has been added to the roster. But now he finally gets a chance to play for the first time. And it's an 11 a.m. game, Jesse. And now here he is. And he's been, I'm sure he's frustrated. I'm sure he's angry. He just wants to play. And he goes out and he gets 5 hits. And to me, it's a good reminder that no matter what the big picture view is, there's always a story within the story. And I think as broadcasters, we deserve to the player, to their family, to make sure that we are at our best for when they are doing something that they will always remember.
Yeah, we had a ball player who opened up this year hitting 160. Then he just went 5 for 5, so suddenly he's hitting 300. The small sample size of April. But yes, each game presents opportunities for each of those hitters, 1 through 9, go out and do something that will never be forgotten. So I really enjoy that. That's baseball, right? There's no record that we're working our way up to like Rickey Henderson. There's no pitcher who can throw a no-hitter any time out and already has 6 heading to the mound like Nolan Ryan. There's no one of the greatest home run hitters, perhaps the greatest, heading out there and trying to hit the first ball into McCovey Cove. This is the cat going out there and deftly line it this way, poke it that way, ground it this way, knock it this way. Oh, look, it adds up to 6 in one day. It's like the great Mike Benjamin game where you go, my goodness, how many people could have done what you just did? You had yourself a day that will never be forgotten.
You want to get on your soapbox about why this is why you keep score?
Yeah, so when I don't keep score, I can't see things in the larger context of the game. I might not understand what a guy has done earlier in the day. I might not understand what has happened beyond, here's the batter standing in, the last guy up just struck out. So I've seen high school games, I've seen college games. I can look up at the scoreboard and I can see what the score is, but I don't truly understand what kind of day has been had before me. I've had games that I've scored where I look up and I go, this pitcher has struck out 12 batters today, and it crept up on me. And so if I wasn't keeping score of this White Sox-Blue Jays game, it would have been very easy for me to have gone home that night and not have understood that Frank Catalanato went 6 for 6.
We had a game earlier this year. We have this huge video board in left center, and it lists what the player has done so far in the game. So even if you're not keeping score, you can still know. And we have a player by the name of Willie McIver, and he was 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. And now he's down on the count 0-2. And our fans in Albuquerque are so great, Jesse, that a bunch of the fans saw this, and they just really started to cheer on Willie. Come on, Willie, you can do this. I don't remember what the score was. I know that we lost the game because we've lost almost every game this year, but it's something that I will always take with me. And when I saw Willie the next day and I asked him about it, and he said, our fans are so great, and that just meant everything in the world to him, that the fans recognized that he was having a bad day and just cheered him on, and he fought foul ball, ball 1, foul ball. He ended up working a walk, and it's just one walk in a 6-month season, but the way the crowd got behind him and the way that he was able to not strike out, it's just one of those really fun, beautiful moments in baseball.
Man, that's so cool. It's seeing a cycle erupt out of nowhere where you go, oh, this guy needs this hit for the cycle. And he gets it. Seeing an immaculate inning where you've watched strike 1, strike 2, strike 3. Okay, the next batter, strike 1, strike 2. Wait a second, strike 3. Uh-oh. And it can happen in any inning. It can happen in any game. And it can happen really to any player if fortune smiles on them that day. Or misfortune if suddenly that sombrero is turning platinum.
Okay, so sometimes something happens at a baseball game related to baseball. And then sometimes something happens not related to baseball, but a baseball game happens to be going on, and it becomes one of the defining moments of a moment in history.
All around Citizens Bank Park, they're chanting USA, USA. That's because, according to reports, Osama bin Laden has been killed. And President Obama is about to address the United States audience and give an update on what the situation is. Boy, news travels fast, even in the ballpark.
Now the pitch, and it's line foul into the seats down the third base line. 1 ball, 1 strike. And I'll tell you what's going on. The crowd is chanting USA. And the reason for that is that there are reports circulating I am not sure if they've yet been confirmed by the White House that Osama bin Laden is dead. How that's happened, we don't know. But this crowd now knows it. It's amazing how things seem so important for the moment, like they did when Ryan Howard batted with the bases loaded. And then if it's true that Osama bin Laden has been captured, killed, or whatever, it just takes you back to that awful, awful day. And you wonder why you get so upset or worked up over a baseball game in the first place.
Two great perspectives from the Phillies and Mets radio broadcasting teams that day, Jesse.
Well, you start off with the context. You start off with the crowd and the crowd chanting. And then you say, here's what they're doing. Here's why they're doing it. And then you as a broadcaster, we just talked about Marty Brennaman and his journalistic tendencies. I think that another reaction, and one that I wholeheartedly get behind, is to react like a human being and to say, here's perspective. Here's how I'm struck. Here's how we all come together. Here's where a baseball game becomes the backdrop for something larger. And so I really enjoy the ability to step back and say, there's something else going on here that is important and we need to talk about.
I got chills just watching that. I remember when it happened live, it was a Sunday night. So that was the Sunday night game of the week. And I remember watching that. I was sitting at my dining room table, either eating dinner or doing something. But I remember probably got a text message from somebody or read it online. And then when I heard the Phillies fans chanting USA, I got goosebumps that day. I just got goosebumps now. I mean, I think I'm almost at a loss of words just because, I remember 9/11 and I remember where I was that day. And, it was the middle of the baseball season. Again, I was in Houston, Texas, and it was, the morning of a game when the late Nick Peters from the Sacramento Bee called my hotel room and he said, "Kid, turn on the TV." The bleeps hit the fan. And I remember being stuck in Houston and being on one of the first flights back to the Bay Area. I was covering the Giants at the time and, everything about that season. And I even, again, listening to those descriptions about it's not confirmed, the White House has not confirmed this. I think you hear the journalistic integrity there too of, we don't know this for sure, but these are the reports and this is what the fans are seeing and sharing with one another. Great shots of people with their phones to one another. You see this and I don't care who won that game between the Phillies and the Mets. That will always go down as one of the more, I think, legendary moments in Phillies fans' history that they just spontaneously started chanting USA.
For us as broadcasters, I'd like to break things down into categories. We have to be able to call a pitch. We have to be able to call the result, the ball in play. We have to be able to call a highlight. If someone hits a home run, if someone makes a diving catch, you work on these things. You work on calling a strike. You work on calling a routine grounder. You work on calling a highlight play. This is something that it's hard to work on, but you have to be able to do. You have to be able to call the non-baseball moment or the moment that is the unthinkable, whether that's for positive or negative.
Yeah, whether that's someone running on the field, whether it's a fun someone running on the field, whether that's a dog that runs on the field because it's Bark in the Park Day, whether that is a major security issue that someone has run on the field. God forbid if there's ever an extremely bad thing that is happening at a ballpark, or whether there's breaking news about something that's happened in the world.
It is up to you to find the words. And so I do think it's important for you and I to talk about, and maybe we devote a whole episode to this. How do you find the words to something that would render us speechless?
I remember when the Boston Marathon bombing occurred. It was a day game for us. We were playing the Iowa Cubs. And I want to say that it happened fairly late in the game. And I worked solo at the time. And so I didn't have all the details. I didn't bring it up because I wanted to make sure that I had all the facts right. And I don't know if I had time to properly do so working solo at that point. So I didn't mention it. I remember reading about it on the bus from Des Moines, Iowa to Omaha, Nebraska. And I remembered that was also my first year doing AAA with the Isotopes. I remember thinking, okay, I need to really make sure that I'm ready for something like this. And I need to really make decisions about if I am going to say something, what am I going to say? Make sure the facts are correct and don't rush it. Just make sure that you really have a clear thought about how to present some type of major news like this.
Yeah. Like it starts with that that journalistic start, right? Starts with those facts. And then you build from there. I do think it is important for a broadcaster to have the humanity. And so to connect this back to Hawk Harrelson, no one could ever accuse Hawk of being a robot. You knew exactly who he was as a person, as he was calling a game. And I do think for that connection to exist between the broadcaster and the audience member, you need that. So I think that's very important. I believe that we have one more clip.
Yep, one more. Let's go ahead and take one more time where something might happen that's historical, but oh wait, he's not in the starting lineup, so I guess it's not going to happen.
That one is drilled to left field. Is it high enough? It is gone. See ya. A pinch hit. Home run for Alex Rodriguez. Number 660, tying him with Willie Mays for 4th place on the all-time home run list. And he does it in dramatic fashion, giving the Yankees a 3-2 lead.
Well, Michael, you called it, had the green light. 3-0 pitch from Tazawa. The history was there. Joe Girardi knew about it, sends him up the pinch hit, and the Yankees have the lead.
May 1st.
What a day. A pinch hit home run at Fenway on a 3-0 count. Talk about all the different ways that you may not possibly be ready for this moment. I think Michael Kay does a fabulous job of calling that home run. Even, is it high enough? Yes, it is. And, and almost fitting for Alex Rodriguez's career that he gets booed as he goes around the bases because, number one, he's Alex Rodriguez, and number two, he hit it at Fenway, and that's the Yankees' biggest rival there, the Red Sox.
I mean, you think, okay, A-Rod's sitting on 659, but he's not in the starting lineup. So I'm going to prepare all these other things, right? I'm going to prepare on the other guys. We'll get back to A-Rod's chase for Willie Mays tomorrow. Oh, wait, here he comes. Oh, they're pitching around him. No, they're not. Staying on your toes.
Yeah, so May 1st, I mean, you think about all of the different things that could possibly happen on a day in baseball history. And like Jesse and I said, we like to do this almost every single day with our broadcasts. And you think about a 6-for-6 day, the first home run into McCovey Cove, a no-hitter, the all-time stolen base record getting broken, the Willie Mays 660, which was, I believe, 3rd or 4th at the time. I'm losing track now where it was at that time, that A-Rod ties. And then you also have Osama bin Laden was captured and killed. And all of those things happened, Jesse, on May 1st.
Which keeps us on our toes today and every day to understand as we come to the ballpark, something might happen. And so be aware of the historical context. Look around us, because I think it's important for you and I to say, here's the pitch, it's a little low. Let me tell you something that's happening right now in Chicago. Let's look at this other place. So that way our scope remains broad while we understand that the unexpected might occur right in front of us at the field and on the next pitch or with this batter. And it might be a star or it might not be a star. It's really a great joy in baseball.
Let me ask you this, Jesse. Whenever you're broadcasting a game, how many other windows do you have open of the out-of-town scoreboard for the Midwest League or for Major League Baseball or for ABC News? Because as we continue with this discussion, I'm trying to think about, am I always going to know this? If the crowd starts chanting USA, am I going to know? If there's something else that is happening, and again, it's one thing if it's late in the season and you're definitely checking the out-of-town scoreboard, but on May 1st, am I always going to be checking the news and the headlines? What about you?
So I have a lot of tabs open. Plus, I've got my email that I'm checking. Plus, I'm checking my phone because I want to know suddenly if a listener says that the broadcast is down or that something's too quiet or whatever it is that I might not need to know. I need there to be channels for people to communicate with me. So whether they text me, they email me, whatever it might be, I've got all of these different things splitting my attention. And as you and I talk about, the most important thing for broadcasters, for crying out loud, watch the field. You really do. You've got to have those channels of communication open.
And that's when you also need to have really good friends or coworkers who can let you know about different things. And where if you're in TV, you've got someone in your ear that's letting you know who's inside the truck about what's happening.
That's exactly right.
All right, Jesse, this was super fun. I enjoyed looking at one day in the history of baseball with you.
Oh, we're doing this again. We're going to choose another random day, and we'll see what we come across.
For Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, I'm Josh Suchon. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next week. This is Crafting the Call.